Time for dinner. We're on 2 Kings 17. In the 12th year of Ahaz, sovereign of Yehuda, Yoshea, son of Elah, began to reign over Israel in Shomron for 9 years. And he did evil in the eyes of Jehovah, but not as the sovereign of Israel who were before him. Shalmaneser, sovereign of Ashur, came up against him, and Hoshea became his servant and rendered him a present. But the sovereign of Ashur found a conspiracy in Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to So, sovereign of Mizraim, and had not brought a present to the sovereign of Ashur as year by year. And the sovereign of Ashur shut him up and bound him in prison. And the sovereign of Ashur went through all the land and went up to Shomron and besieged it for 3 years. In the 9th year of Hoshea, the sovereign of Ashur captured Shomron and exiled Israel to Ashur. In Halah and Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes. Now these came to be because the children of Israel had sinned against Jehovah their Elohim, who had brought them out of the land of Mizraim, from under the hand of Pharaoh sovereign of Mizraim, and feared other mighty ones, and walked in the laws of the nations, whom Jehovah had disposed from before the children of Israel, and of the sovereigns of Israel that they had made. And the children of Israel secretly did against Jehovah their Elohim matters that were not right, and they built for themselves high places in all their cities, from watchtower unto the walled city, and set up for themselves pillars and Asherim on every high hill and under every green tree, and burned incense there on all the high places, like the nations whom Jehovah had removed from their presence. And they did evil matters to provoke Jehovah, and served the idols of which Jehovah had said to them, "Do not do this." And Jehovah warned Israel and Yehuda through all of his prophets and every seer, saying, "Turn back from your evil ways, and guard my commands and my laws, according to all the Torah which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets." But they did not listen, and hardened their necks, like the necks of their fathers, who did not put their trust in Jehovah their Elohim, and rejected his laws and his covenant that he had made with their fathers, and his witnesses which he had witnessed against them, and went after worthlessness and became worthless, and after the nations who were all around them, of whom Jehovah had commanded them not to do like them. And they left all the commands of Jehovah their Elohim, and made for themselves a molded image, 2 calves, and an Asherah, and bowed themselves to all the hosts of heavens, and served Baal, and caused their sons and daughters to pass through the fire, and practiced divination and sorcery, and sold themselves to do evil in the eyes of Jehovah, to provoke him. So Jehovah was very enraged with Israel, and removed them from his presence. None was left but the tribe of Yehuda alone. And Yehuda also did not guard the commands of Jehovah their Elohim, but walked in the laws of Israel which they made. And Jehovah rejected all the seed of Israel, and afflicted them, and gave them into the hand of plunderers, until he had cast them out from his presence. For he tore Israel from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam, son of Nebat, sovereign. And Jeroboam drove Israel from following Jehovah, and made them commit a great sin. And the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam which he did. They did not turn away from them, until Jehovah removed Israel from his presence, as he spoke by all his servants the prophets. So Israel was exiled from their land to Ashshur, as it is to this day. And the sovereign of Ashshur brought people from Babel, and from Cuthah, and from Avah, and from Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Shomron, instead of the children of Israel. And they took possession of Shomron and dwelt in its cities. And it came to be, at the beginning of their dwelling there, that they did not fear Jehovah. And Jehovah sent lions among them, which were killing among them. And they spoke to the sovereign of Ashshur, saying, The nations whom you have removed and placed in the cities of Shomron do not know the right ruling of the Elohim of the land. And he has sent lions among them, and see, they are slaying among them, because they do not know the right ruling of the Elohim of the land. And the sovereign of Ashshur commanded, saying, Send one of the priests whom you exiled from there to go there, and let him go and dwell there, and let him teach them the right ruling of the Elohim of the land. And one of the priests whom they had exiled from Shomron came and dwelt in Bethel, and taught them how to fear Jehovah. But every nation was making mighty ones of its own, and put them in the houses of the high places, with the Shomronim who had made every nation in the city where they dwelt. And the men of Babel made Succoth-Benoth, and the men of Cuth made Nergal, and the men of Hamath made Ashima. And the Avites made Nebaz and Tartak, and the Sepharvites burned their children in the fire to Adramelech and Anamelech, the mighty ones of Sepharim. They also feared Jehovah, and from every class they made for themselves priests of the high places, who offered for them in the house of the high places. They were fearing Jehovah, and they were serving their own mighty ones, according to the ruling of the nations from among whom they had been exiled. To this day they are doing according to the former ruling. They are not fearing Jehovah, nor do they follow their laws, or their right ruling, or the Torah and command, which Jehovah had commanded the children of Yaakov, whose name he made Yisrael, with whom Jehovah had made a covenant, and commanded them, saying, Do not fear other mighty ones, nor bow down to them, nor serve them, nor slaughter to them. But Jehovah, who brought you out of the land of Mizraim with great power, and with an outstretched arm, him you shall fear, and to him you shall bow yourselves, and to him you shall slaughter. And guard to do forever the laws and the right rulings, and the Torah, and the command which he wrote to you, and do not fear other mighty ones. And do not forget the covenant that I made with you, and do not fear other mighty ones. But fear Jehovah your Elohim, so that he delivers you from the hand of all your enemies. And they did not obey, but did according to their former ruling. So these nations were fearing Jehovah, and served their carved images, both their children and their children's children, and their fathers, as their fathers did, they are doing to this day. And it came to be in the 3rd year of Hoshea son of Elah, sovereign of Israel, that Hizkiah son of Ahaz, sovereign of Yehudah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Abi, daughter of Zechariah. And he did what was right in the eyes of Jehovah, according to all that his father David did. He took away the high places and broke the pillars and cut down the Asherah and broke in pieces the bronze serpent which Moshe had made. For until those days the children of Israel burned incense to it and called it Nehushtan. He put his trust in Jehovah Elohim of Israel, and after him was none like him among all the sovereigns of Yehudah, nor were before him. And he clung to Jehovah. He did not turn away from following him, but guarded his commands, which Jehovah had commanded Moshe. And Jehovah was with him wherever he went. He acted wisely. And he rebelled against the sovereign of Ashur and did not serve him. He struck the Philistines as far as Azah and its borders, from watchtower unto the walled city. And it came to be in the 4th year of the sovereign of Hiskiyahu, which was the 17th year of Hoshea son of Elah, sovereign of Israel, that Shalmaneser, sovereign of Ashur, came up against Shomeron and besieged it. And they captured it at the end of 3 years. In the 6th year of Hiskiah, that was the 9th year of Hoshea, sovereign of Israel, Shomeron was captured. And the sovereign of Ashur exiled Israel to Ashur and placed them in Halah and Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes, because they did not obey the voice of Jehovah their Elohim, but transgressed his covenant, all that Moshe the servant of Jehovah had commanded, and they did not obey nor do them. And in the 14th year of sovereign Hiskiyahu, Sanherib, sovereign of Ashur, came up against the walled cities of Yehudah and captured them. And Hiskiah, sovereign of Yehudah, sent to the sovereign of Ashur at Lachish, saying, I have done wrong, turn away from me. I shall bear whatever you impose on me. And the sovereign of Ashur imposed upon Hiskiah, the sovereign of Yehudah, 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold. And Hiskiah gave him all the silver that was found in the house of Jehovah and in the treasuries of the sovereign's house. At that time Hiskiah cut off the doors of the Hechal of Jehovah at the doorpost which Hiskiah, sovereign of Yehudah, had overlaid, and gave it to the sovereign of Ashur. And the sovereign of Ashur sent the Tartan and the Rabsaris and the Rabshakeh from Lachish with a great army against Yerushalayim to sovereign Hiskiah. And they went up and came to Yerushalayim, and when they had come up, they came and stood by the channel of the upper pool, which was on the highway to the launderer's field. And they called to the sovereign, and Eliakim, son of Hilkiyahu, who was over the household of Shebna the scribe, and Joah, son of Asaph, the recorder, came out to them. And the Rabshakeh said to them, Please say to Hiskiyahu, Thus said the great sovereign, the sovereign of Ashur, What is this trust in which you have trusted? You have spoken of having counsel and strength for battle, and they are only words of the lips. And in whom do you trust that you rebel against me? Now look, you have put your trust in the staff of his crushed reed, Misraim, of which if a man leans, it shall go into his hand and pierce it. So is Pharaoh sovereign of Misraim to all who trust in him. But when you say to me, We trust in Jehovah our Elohim, is it not he whose high places and whose slaughter places Hiskiyahu has taken away, and said to Yehudah and Yerushalayim, Bow yourselves before this slaughter place in Yerushalayim? And now I urge you, give a pledge to my master, the sovereign of Ashur, then I give you 2,000 horses, if you are able to put riders on them. And how do you turn back the face of one commander of the least of my master's servants, and trust in Mizraim for chariots and horsemen? Now I have come up with Jehovah against this place to destroy it. Jehovah said to me, Go up against this land, and you shall destroy it. Then said Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, and Shebna and Yoah, to the Rabshakeh, Speak to your servants in Aramaic, for we understand it, and do not speak to us in the language of Yehuda, in the ears of the people on the wall. And Rabshakeh said to them, Has my master sent me to your master and to you to speak these words, and not to the men sitting on the wall to eat their own dung and drink their own urine with you? And the Rabshakeh stood and called out with a loud voice in the language of Yehuda, and spoke and said, Hear the words of the great sovereign, the sovereign of Ashur. Thus said the sovereign, Do not let Hizkiyahu deceive you, for he is unable to deliver you out of his hand. And do not let Hizkiyahu make you trust in Jehovah, saying, Jehovah shall certainly deliver us. And the city is not given into the hand of the sovereign of Ashur. Do not listen to Hizkiyahu, for thus said the sovereign of Ashur, Make peace with me by a present, and come out to me, and let each of you eat from his own vine, and each from his own fig tree, and each of you drink the waters of his own cistern, until I come. Then I shall take you away to a land like your own, a land of grain and new wine, a land of bread and vineyards, a land of olive trees and honey, and live and not die. Do not listen to Hizkiyahu when he misleads you, saying, Jehovah shall deliver us. Has any of the mighty ones of the nations at all delivered its land from the hand of the sovereign of Ashur? Where are the mighty ones of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the mighty ones of the Sepharvaim and Hena and Divah? Did they deliver Shomron from my hand? Who among all the mighty ones of the land have delivered their land out of my hand, that Jehovah should deliver Yerushalayim from my hand? But the people were silent and did not answer him a word, for the command of the sovereign was, Do not answer. And Elikaim, son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and Yoah son of Asaph, the recorder, came to Hizkiyahu with their garments torn, and they reported to him the words of Rabshakeh. And it came to be, when sovereign Hizkiyahu heard it, that he tore his garments and covered himself with sackcloth, and went into the house of Jehovah, and sent Eliakim, who was over the household, and Shebna the scribe, and the elders of the priests, covering themselves with sackcloth, to Yeshayahu the prophet, son of Amoz. And they said to him, Thus said Hizkiyahu, This day is a day of distress and rebuke and scorn, for the children have come to birth, but there is no power to bring forth. It could be that Jehovah your Elohim does hear all the words of Rabshakeh, whom his master the sovereign of Ashur has sent to reproach the living Elohim, and shall rebuke the words which Jehovah your Elohim has heard. Therefore, lift up your prayer for the remnant that is left. And the servants of sovereign Hizkiyahu came to Yeshayahu, and Yeshayahu said to them, Say this to your master, Thus said Jehovah, do not be afraid of the words which you have heard, with which the servants of the sovereign of Ashur have reviled me. See, I am putting a spirit upon him, and he shall hear a report and return to his own land, and I shall cause him to fall by the sword in his land. And Rabshakeh returned, and found the sovereign of Ashur fighting against Libnah, and he had heard that he had left Lachish. And when the sovereign heard concerning Tirhakah, sovereign of Cush, see, he had come out to fight against you, he again sent messengers to Hiskiyahu, saying, Speak to Hiskiyahu, sovereign of Yehudah, saying, do not let your Elohim in whom you trust deceive you, saying, Yerushalayim is not given into the hand of the sovereign of Ashur. See, you have heard what the sovereign of Ashur have done to all the lands by putting them under the ban. And are you going to be delivered? Have the mighty one of the nations delivered those whom my fathers have destroyed? Gozan and Haran and Raseph, and the sons of Eden, who were in Telasar? Where is the sovereign of Hamath, and the sovereign of Arpad, and the sovereign of the city of Shepharvaim, Henah, and Ivah? And Hiskiyahu received the letters from the hand of the messengers, and read them, and went up to the house of Jehovah. And Hiskiyahu spread it before Jehovah. And Hiskiyahu prayed before Jehovah, and said, O Jehovah, Elohim of Yisrael, the one who dwells between the cherubim, you are Elohim, you alone. Of all the reigns of the earth, you have made the heavens and the earth. Incline your ear, O Jehovah, and hear. Open your eyes, O Jehovah, and see, and hear the words of Sanherib, which he had sent to reproach the living Elohim. Truly, Jehovah, the sovereigns of Ashur have laid waste the nations and their lands, and have put their mighty ones into the fire. For they were not mighty ones, but the work of men's hands, wood and stone, and destroyed them. And now, O Jehovah, our Elohim, I pray, save us from his hand, so that all the reigns of the earth know that you are Jehovah Elohim, you alone. Then Yerushalayim, son of Amoz, sent to Hiskiyahu, saying, Thus said Jehovah Elohim of Yisrael, I have heard that which you have prayed to me against Sanherib, sovereign of Ashur. This is the word which Jehovah has spoken concerning him. The maiden, the daughter of Sion, has despised you, mocked you. The daughter of Yerushalayim has shaken her head behind you. Whom have you reproached and reviled? Against whom have you raised a voice and lifted up your eyes on high? Against the set-apart one of Israel, by the hand of your messengers, you have reproached Jehovah and said, With my many chariots I have come up to the height of the mountains, to the sides of Lebanon, and I cut down its tall cedars, its choice cypress trees, and I enter its remotest parts, its thickest forest. I have dug and drunk strange water, and with the soles of my feet I dry up all the streams of defense. Have you not heard long ago, I made it? From the days of old I formed it. Now I have brought it to be that you should make walled cities ruinous heaps. And their inhabitants were powerless. They were overthrown and put to shame. They were as the grass of the field and the green plants, as the grass of the housetops, and withered before it came up. But I know you're sitting down and you're going out, and your coming in, and your rage against me. Because you rage against me, and your pride has come up to my ears, I shall put my hook in your nose, and my bridle in your lips, and I shall turn you back by the way which you came. And this is the sign for you. This year you eat what grows of itself, and in the second year that springs from that, and in the third year sow and reap, and plant vineyards, and eat their fruit. And the remnant who have escaped of the house of Yehudah shall again take root downward and be fruitful. For out of Yerushalayim comes forth a remnant, and those who escape from Mount Sion, the ardor of Jehovah does this. Therefore said Jehovah concerning the sovereign of Ashur, he does not come into this city, nor does he shoot an arrow there, nor does he come before it with shield, nor does he build a siege mound against it. By the way that he came, by the same he turns back, and he does not come into this city, declares Jehovah. And I shall defend this city, to save it for my own sake, and for the sake of David my servant. And it came to be in that night that the messenger of Jehovah went out and struck in the camp of Ashur 185,000. And they rose up early in the morning and saw all of their dead bodies. And Sennacherib, sovereign of Ashur, broke camp and went away and turned back and remained in Nineveh. And it came to be, as he was bowing himself in the house of Nisroch, his mighty ones, that his sons, Adremelech and Shar-Esher, struck him with the sword, and they escaped into the land of Ararat, and his son, Esarhaddon, reigned in his place. And in those days Hiskiyahu was sick unto death. And Yeshayahu the prophet, son of Amoz, went to him and said to him, Thus said Jehovah, Command your house, for you are going to die and not live. And he turned his face toward the wall and prayed to Jehovah, saying, I pray to you, O Jehovah, remember how I have walked before you in truth and with a perfect heart, and have done what was good in your eyes. And Hiskiyahu wept bitterly. And it came to be before Yeshayahu had gone out into the middle court that the word of Jehovah came to him, saying, Return and say to Hiskiyahu, the leader of my people, Thus said Jehovah, the Elohim of David your father, I have heard your prayer, I have seen your tears. See, I am going to heal you. On the third day, go up to the house of Jehovah. And I shall add to your days 15 years, and deliver you and this city from the hand of the sovereign of Ashur, and shall defend this city for my own sake, and for the sake of David my servant. And Yeshayahu said, Take a cake of figs. And they took and laid it on the boil, and he recovered. And Hiskiyahu said to Yeshayahu, What is the sign that Jehovah does heal me, and that I shall go up to the house of Jehovah the third day? And Yeshayahu said, This is the sign for you from Jehovah, that Jehovah does the word which he has spoken. Shall the shadow go before 10 degrees, or backward 10 degrees? And Hiskiyahu said, It would be easy for the shadow to go down 10 degrees. No, but let the shadow go backward then 10 degrees. And Yeshayahu the prophet cried out to Jehovah, and he broke the shadow 10 degrees backward, by which it had gone down to the sundial of Ahaz. At that time, Berodach, Baladan, son of Baladan, sovereign of Babel, sent letters to the presence of Hiskiyahu, for he heard that Hiskiyahu had been sick. And Hiskiyahu listened to them, and showed them all his treasure house, and silver and gold, and the spices, and the precious ointment, and all his armory, and all that was found among the treasuries. There was not an object in his house or in his rule that Hiskiyahu did not show them. And Yeshayahu the prophet came to sovereign Hiskiyahu and said to him, "What did these men say? And from where did they come to you?" And Hiskiyahu said, "They came from a distant land, from Babel." And he said, "What have they seen in your house?" And Hiskiyahu answered, "They saw all that is in my house. There is not an object among my treasures that I did not show them." And Yeshayahu said to Hiskiyahu, "Hear the word of Jehovah. See, the days are coming, when all that is in your house, and what your fathers have treasured up until this day, shall be brought to Babel. No object is to be left, said Jehovah. And they are going to take away some of your sons, whom are to be born to you, whom you bring forth, and they shall be eunuchs in the palaces of the sovereign of Babel." And Hiskiyahu said to Yeshayahu, "The word of Jehovah which you have spoken is good." And he said, "It is not so, if peace and truth are to be in my days." And the rest of the acts of Hiskiyahu, and all his might, and how he made a pool and a channel and brought water into the city, are they not written in the book of the annals of the sovereigns of Yehudah? So Hiskiyahu slept with his fathers, and Menashe his son reigned in his place.